6:40 in the evening. You stand at a convenience store counter, a $5 bill in one hand and an energy drink in the other. The cashier slides a scratch ticket across the counter without looking up. You don't think about it, nobody thinks about it. $5 is the price of not having to decide. You scratch the ticket in the parking lot with a coin from the cup holder. Nothing, you knew it would be nothing. You drop it on the passenger seat with the other three from this week. By tomorrow, you won't remember this happened. That's the entire point of $5, it vanishes without leaving a mark. Drink half the can and drive home. By tomorrow, the memory of this moment will fade. That's the magic of $5, it's just enough to disappear without consequence. But now hold that $5 in your mind. This is a story about the same $5 every single day for 40 years and about the two different people it quietly decides you will become. You are 25. It's the next evening, the same counter, the same cashier. This time you don't reach for the ticket, you don't buy the can. You walk out with nothing in your hands. Sit in your car and open an app you downloaded the night before. You move $5 into an index fund. The whole market, one button, no opinion required. The screen says your balance is $5. It looks absurd, almost childish. You feel slightly foolish, like a man planting a single seed in an empty field and calling it a farm. There is no rush, no thrill, no number scratched off to reveal a win. There is just $5 sitting in something that owns a sliver of every large company on Earth. Do it again the next day and the next. You set it to happen automatically so you never have to feel the decision. The $5 leaves before you can spend it on something with a wrapper. $152 a month leaves your account towards something you cannot touch. You barely notice it's gone. That was always the strange part about the $5. It disappeared either way. You just changed where you were 26. A full year has passed. The balance reads about $1,900. You put in $1,825 of your own money and the market added the rest while you slept. Mention your $75 gain at lunch to a coworker. He laughs, not cruelly, just honestly. $75 in a year, he said. I make that in an afternoon. He's not wrong. He buys lunch out every day, a drink at the corner store every evening, a scratch ticket when the jackpot gets loud. Roughly $5 a day scattered across 100 tiny pleasures he will never be able to name later. You say nothing, you close your laptop. The difference between you and him this year is $75 and a habit nobody can see. $75 is not the part that matters. The habit is, you are 35 years in, the balance is around $11,000, you contributed about $9,000 of it, the rest appeared out of time. $11,000 built entirely out of things you didn't buy. You do the math one night and realize it equals every coffee, every energy drink, every impulse at every register you've stood at since you were 25. Except instead of being in a landfill, it's in an account with your name on it. That same month, a friend texts you a screenshot. A coin, a ticker you've never heard of, up 400% in a week. He's put $2,000 in. He tells you to stop being a coward, that your boring fund makes in a year what his thing makes before lunch. He's right about the speed. He's wrong about the direction. You've seen the exact shape before on a counter under a coin in a parking lot. The promise that a small amount becomes a large amount instantly, with no time in between. A promise has a name where you grew up, and the name is a scratch ticket. You text back that you'll pass. He sends a laughing emoji and buys more. 3 months later, the coin is down 90% and he has stopped mentioning it. You keep doing the most boring thing a person can do with money. You keep being early to bed and slow to rich. You are 35, 10 years in. The balance is roughly $27,800. You have put in $18,000 of your own dollars. The market has handed you almost $10,000 more for the crime of not flinching. And the year goes bad, the whole market drops. Headlines use the word crash. Your balance falls by a third in a few weeks, more money lost on paper than you earned all year at your job. Your friend who sold everything at the bottom of the last one tells you he saw it coming, that he's in cash now, safe. You don't sell, but it's softer than that, quieter than a decision. You simply don't open the app. You let the number fall and you keep the $152 going out the door every month, buying the same fund while it's cheaper than it's been in years. You're not brave, you are just bored enough to do nothing, and doing nothing turns out to be the rarest skill in finance. By the time everyone agrees it's safe to come back in, your boring habit already bought the bottom nobody could see. You are 40, 15 years in. The market came back the way it always has so far and the balance is around $52,600. You have put in about $27,000 of your own. For the first time in your life, the account holds more money than you ever fed it. Eat that twice because it's the moment the whole thing changes character. To now you were pushing a stone uphill $5 at a time and the hill barely moved. Now the stone is rolling on its own and your only job is to not stand in front of it. A coworker gets laid off that spring. He has nothing behind him, no cushion, nothing between him and the first missed paycheck but the next one. You have a number you've never touched and never planned to touch sitting quietly in the background. For the first time, you understand the $5 was never only about some far-off retirement. It was always also a wall between you and the version of a bad year that ends in panic. You don't tell him about it. You buy his lunch and say nothing. You are 45, 20 years in. The balance is about $89,000. You have contributed $36,000 across 2 decades, 5 at a time, and the account has more than doubled it on its own. For the first time, something strange is true. The money the market gives you in a year is starting to rival what you put in. Your account has begun working a second job you never assigned it. You go to a reunion that summer. Someone pulls up in a car that costs more than you make in a year at least. Someone else talks loudly about a watch. You drive the same paid-off car you've had for 8 years, the one that owes you nothing. Your old coworker is there, the one who laughed at your $75. He still buys lunch out, he still buys the ticket. He asks, half joking, if you ever did anything with that little app. You tell him you stuck with it. He asks how much is in there now. You tell him. The table goes quiet in a way you didn't ask for and don't enjoy. You change the subject. The $5 was never loud. It was the one thing in the room that never needed to be. Or 50, 25 years in. The balance is around $144,000. You have contributed about $45,000 in total and the account has tripled it without asking your permission. You read the headlines differently now. They run stories about how most people your age have almost nothing saved, how comfortable retirement is slipping out of reach, how the math no longer works for ordinary earners. You are an ordinary earner. You did the same job as the people in those headlines, made roughly the same salary, paid the same rent, sat in the same traffic. The only thing you did differently was refuse a scratch ticket and a cold can quietly for 25 years and root the difference into the most unremarkable fund in existence. Your friends your age talk about retirement like a cliff they're being marched toward. You talk about it like weather, something that arrives whether you worry about it or not. You don't say that out loud either. By now you understand the number is loudest when it stays silent. You are 55, 30 years in. The balance is around $226,000. You've put in about $55,000 total across 3 decades in increments small enough to lose in a couch. The other $170,000 was never yours to earn. It was time, and you simply let time have the room to do its work. This is the year the math quietly flips for good. The account now grows more in a strong year from its own size than you could add by hand if you doubled your contributions. You have become a passenger to your own balance. The thing you built is now bigger than the building of it. You don't talk about the number, not to your kids, not to your coworkers, not to the friend who once told you to stop being a coward. The number lives in a place no one looks, which is exactly where it grew. We're 65, 40 years from the evening you didn't buy the scratch ticket. The balance is about $531,000. Sit with the breakdown because it's the whole story in 3 figures. Of that $500,000, the amount you actually contributed, $5 at a time every day for 4 decades, is $73,000. The other $458,000 is growth. Money you never earned, never worked an hour for, never noticed leaving, and never watched arrive. You did not get lucky, you did not pick a winner, you did not time anything. You skipped a scratch ticket and a can of something cold 40,000 times in a row and let the smallest possible amount sit in the most boring possible place for the longest possible time. That's the entire mechanism. There is no second secret, no version of this where someone hands you the $458,000 faster. The slowness was the price, and almost nobody is willing to pay in a currency that takes 40 years to clear. Your old coworker retires the same year you do. Same job, same salary the whole way, decent man, never missed a shift. He spent his $5 a day on 1,000 small comforts he enjoyed in the moment and cannot point to now. Over 40 years his version of the $5 also added up to $73,000. The exact same money. He drank it, scratched it, ate it, tossed it on the passenger seat. You and he stood at the same counter, held the same $5 bill on the same evenings for 40 years. He has a lifetime of small pleasures and a pension. You have those same pleasures mostly, and also $500,000 sitting behind your life like a second person who has been working the whole time. Nobody can point to the day the two of you split. There was no day. There were just 2 different answers to the same tiny question asked again every evening until the answers stopped being choices and became 2 different lives. We're right now at 6:40 in the evening and someone is standing at a convenience store counter with a $5 bill already in their hand. The energy drink, the scratch ticket, the cashier slides over without looking up. They will scratch it in the parking lot with a coin from the cup holder and it will be nothing, and they will already know it was going to be nothing. They are not doing anything wrong. $5 is nothing. That has always been the trap and the door at the same time. $5 is too small to matter, which is exactly why almost no one keeps it, and exactly why it quietly decides everything for the few who do. You were never going to feel the $5 either way. You only ever got to choose what it was turning you into while you weren't paying attention. The story of the $5 is not about luck or skill or timing. It's about the quiet power of small choices made consistently over time. Nobody can point to the day the two of you split. There was no day. There were just 2 different answers to the same tiny question asked again every evening until the answers stopped being choices and became 2 different lives. The invisible split happens quietly, unnoticed, but its impact is profound. The $5 question is asked every day and every answer builds a future. Over 40 years, your coworker's $5 bought 1,000 small comforts. Yours bought a future. Both paths are valid, but only one leaves a visible mark. The accumulation of small, seemingly insignificant choices is what quietly shapes the outcome. The $5 is both a trap and a door depending on how you answer its question each day. Habit is invisible. Nobody notices the $5 leaving your account, just as nobody notices the $5 spent on a drink or a ticket. But over time, the invisible habit becomes the visible difference. The quiet, consistent action is what builds the wall between panic and security, between ordinary and extraordinary outcomes. The path is boring. There are no big wins, no thrilling moments, no instant gratification. Just the slow, steady accumulation of small amounts day after day, year after year. The boring path is the one almost nobody chooses, but it's the one that quietly wins in the end. The $5 habit is the foundation of lasting change. The $5 habit builds a wall between you and the worst outcomes. It's not just about retirement or wealth, it's about security, peace of mind, and the ability to weather storms. The wall is quiet, unnoticed, but it's always there, protecting you from the moments when life gets hard. Over time, the account becomes like a second person working behind the scenes. It's always there, growing quietly, ready to support you when needed. The $5 habit creates a silent partner in your life, one that works tirelessly without asking for recognition. Every evening, the $5 question is asked. Most people don't notice it, don't feel it, don't realize its importance. But the answer to that question, repeated thousands of times, is what creates the split between 2 lives. The choice is unseen, but its consequences are visible after decades. The $5 feels like nothing, that's the trap. It's too small to matter, too easy to spend, too easy to ignore, but that nothing, repeated daily, becomes everything. The trap is in believing it doesn't matter when in reality it quietly decides your future. For the few who keep the $5, it becomes the door to everything. The habit of saving, investing, and letting time do its work is what opens the door to security, freedom, and peace of mind. The $5 is both a trap and a door, depending on how you answer its question. The slowness is the price. Almost nobody is willing to pay in a currency that takes 40 years to clear. But for those who do, the reward is extraordinary. The currency of time is the most powerful force in finance, and the $5 habit is how you harness it. You are an ordinary earner. You did the same job, paid the same rent, lived the same life as everyone else. The only difference was the $5 habit. The ordinary earner who chooses the boring path ends up with extraordinary results simply by refusing the scratch ticket and the cold can. Retirement arrives like weather. You don't have to worry about it because you've built the wall quietly over decades. The $5 habit means you can face retirement with confidence, knowing you've prepared without loud, dramatic actions, just quiet, consistent choices. The number is loudest when it stays silent. You don't talk about it, don't brag, don't make it the center of attention. The silent number is the result of decades of quiet action, and it's the most powerful statement you can make about your life and choices. You have become a passenger to your own balance. The thing you built is now bigger than the building of it. The account grows more from its own size than you could add by hand. You simply let time and habit do their work, and the results speak for themselves. Sit with the breakdown. $73,000 contributed $458,000 in growth. The story is in the numbers. The $5 habit, repeated daily for 40 years, creates a future that is impossible to achieve any other way. The final breakdown is the proof that small choices matter. You did not get lucky, you did not pick a winner, you did not time anything. The $5 habit is not about luck, it's about consistency, patience, and letting time do its work. The results are extraordinary, but the process is simple and quiet. The mechanism is simple: skip the scratch ticket and the can, let the smallest possible amount sit in the most boring possible place for the longest possible time. There is no second secret. The quiet mechanism is what creates the extraordinary outcome. Almost nobody is willing to pay in a currency that takes 40 years to clear. The patience required is rare, but it's the only way to achieve the outcome. The $5 habit is the currency of time, and it's the price of lasting change. Two people, same job, same salary, same $5 bill every evening, two different answers to the same question repeated thousands of times. The split in lives happens quietly, but its impact is profound. The $5 habit is the difference. The $5 question is asked every day. Most people don't notice it, but it quietly decides everything for the few who do. The answer to the question shapes your future, your security, your peace of mind. The $5 habit is the quiet force behind it all. You were never going to feel the $5 either way. You only ever got to choose what it was turning you into while you weren't paying attention. The story of the $5 is the story of who you become, shaped by small, quiet choices made every day. The habit is invisible, but its impact is undeniable. In the end, the $5 decides everything.